Interference by William Walling. Originally published in the March-April issue of Galaxy magazine, which republished it back-to-back with Saltflower by Sidney J. Van Scyoc in 1974. Read by Darrell T. Smith II for my channel Quasar Spectra. Interference. Good afternoon, Your Honor. The newsman rose as Judge Bui Darananga swept into his chambers, began divesting himself of his robes and wig. The judge's handshake was cordial, firm. "Barry, it's a pleasure to see you again. Sorry to make you wait. My charge to the jury took longer than I'd expected. Don't give it a thought." The newsman winced as Darananga's huge hand enveloped his own. "I appreciate your fitting me into your schedule on such short notice," he said. "I realize that the Lou trial—" "Isn't that what you wanted to talk about?" interrupted the judge with a knowing, good-natured smile. "Ethically, we shouldn't discuss it until the jury reaches a verdict, you know." Darananga stood 6½ feet tall in his blue-black skin. His merry, patient eyes tended to miss nothing. Robust in his early 60s, he had been born in a Nairobi slum, disenfranchised and meager of prospect as any other black urchin. His climb from the gutters of East Africa to Doctor of Jurisprudence had culminated behind a bench in the United Nations High Court. There were those who insisted witchcraft had had something to do with it. "You're aware, of course, that the Lou trial is only a gesture," continued Darananga, stuffing a calabash pipe with rough-cut tobacco he liked to blend himself. "Lou Chow Lung surely is no murderer, no more than you or I. His family forced the trial to satisfy their egos, their pride. The jury will weigh the evidence, if it can truly be called evidence, and rule Dr. Lou innocent of murder in the second degree. Posthumous trials are rarely meaningful, I'm afraid." The reporter's grin was sheepish. "I hoped to learn your views on the Dallin incident, Your Honor." "Certainly you did. Everyone else is talking about Richard Dallin. Why shouldn't we?" Applying a match to the bowl of his calabash, Darananga lolled in the high-backed chair behind his desk, surrounded by a cloud of bluish smoke. "We may never learn what really happened out there," he mused aloud. "The affair's more romantic overtones, aided by sensational press coverage, have kindled public fancy. We have a double homicide among working scientists in the field, then the otherworldly purpose and remote lunar farside base of Project Ozma itself. Next, a third death under unusual circumstances, and finally, a vanished astrophysicist whose diary records visiting aliens from the stars. And an incredible work of art, the photosculpt. By the way, have you seen the Smithsonian exhibit?" "Last month," said the newsman. "Washington was a furnace." Darananga chuckled. "Ah, yes. Late summer isn't the season to visit the American capital. But didn't you sense the nearness of the unknown in that skylighted gallery, Barry? Music pours from hidden speakers, making chills race along your spine once you know the details of the affair." "Music?" The reporter looked wary. "I remember the recorded music, yes, but—" "In a moment, Barry, in a moment," fended Darananga. "I stood in the Smithsonian for 20 minutes, listening, watching the queue wind past. Chattering visitors would approach the pedestal, come face to face with that 8-inch plastic brick encapsulating diminutive, cameo-perfect human figurines, and become suddenly rooted, held by the sort of rapt attention one finds at a showing of Van Gogh or Modigliani. They would stand transfixed until crowd pressure forced them on, to ask futile questions of the guards before wandering off, unsatisfied, toward the exit. I suppose we're all unsatisfied." "We are indeed. Tell me, do you like music?" The judge leaned forward. Yes, of course." Sibelius? Beethoven? The heavier orchestral literature? Perhaps the Bruckner works? The newsman frowned, shifting his weight uneasily. I'm not well acquainted with long-hair works. Why do you ask? Dharananga reflected for a dozen heartbeats in silence. He slowly laid aside his pipe. Richard Dallin loved music, he said. His was a sonorous plea for help, a cry in the night that may or may not have been answered. The judge paused. Don't mistake me. There is no hint of deception or hoax in the Dallin incident, merely mystery, just an unsolved enigma. The photosculpt rests on its pedestal, an affront to reason and common sense, while the diary... Judge Dharananga rubbed his chin. The foreman asked for 3 copies of the diary to take into the jury room for study, he said, looking directly into the newsman's eyes. I've decided to let you read my personal copy this afternoon, Barry. The reporter flinched in surprise, sat suddenly straighter. But isn't the diary still considered evidence? Technically, yes. When the trial concludes, Richard Dallin's celebrated diary will at last be published in its entirety. Withholding the final portion to keep prospective jurors unprejudiced was silly, to say the least. I'm certain the Liu trial is in its last hour. The newsman's eyes widened. Believe me, I'll consider permission to preview the diary a great privilege, Your Honor. May I ask, bluntly, have you formed an opinion about Dallin's fate? An opinion? As the Lord is my witness, I form a new opinion daily. The judge opened the top drawer of his desk. He lifted out a thick, unbound stack of facsimiles, laying them reverently before the newsman. I've earmarked those entries which seemed most pertinent with tape. Read them first. They'll provide an overview. Later, if you wish, you may browse through the remainder at your leisure. Thank you, Judge Dharananga. Thank you very much. The reporter sounded sincere. The judge rose stiffly. He stretched, strode briskly to the door, standing with one hand on the knob. I've some calls to make. I'll be back in an hour or so. He puffed his cheeks, regarding the newsman soberly. Try to retain an open mind, Barry, he said as if in afterthought. Do try. The door eased shut. The newsman was alone. He eagerly fingered the first taped tab, then lifted and folded back a thick sheaf of early pages. At the top of the facing sheet was a heading written in precise cursive. Site 7. Luna, August 26th, 2026. Here at last, writing in cubicle after dinner. Years from now, Geraldine and I will read diary together and chuckle. All a silly diary's good for anyhow. Glad that hellish wait in quarantine and tedious crawler ride are behind me. 18 months of hard work and high bonus, and I'll strut back to Jerry and Tommy Boy with a bundle. Joy! Met here by Dr. Liu. Welcome to the 41ers, says Liu. I have no idea what he meant. We invited the crawler crewmen in for coffee, then saw them off, and Dr. Liu showed me around the station. The 600-meter instrument is the stopper, of course. Staff calls it simply the rig, but actually it's the Carl G. Jansky radio telescope. Be a hell of a thrill working with it. Discovered Dr. Liu stayed awake on presumption my arrival imminent. Absolutely no communication with other lunar sites. A surprise. Mr. Charoff, now on watch. Dr. Butler quietly sleeping. They've been short-handed. 3 men on rotating 8-hour shifts these past months. I had imagined 4 men on station at all times. Turning in now, Liu advises that Dr. Butler will wake me and give formal orientation when he goes on watch. Breaking into routine should be fun. Pleasant dreams. August 28th. Too pooped to write yesterday. Flopped, slept through sack time and most of recreation time. Last sunlight has left the Soviet mountains, hence solar hash gone from sky, and the rig will be at maximum usefulness this next semi-lunar. We're at 27 degrees south latitude. Site 3 lies about 2,700 kilometers northwest in Mare Crisium, while totally unexplored region around Sea of Moscow lies 1,400 kilometers or so due north. Isolated, but that's why I'm here. Most lunar satellites are in equatorial orbits below our short horizon. Farside is kept completely free of radio noise. Policy will pay off when, if, extra human contact is made. Met everyone save Mr. Charoff. We'll meet him next week when Dr. Butler reschedules to include me on duty roster. Butler, nominal chief astronomer, is nearly 50, has goatee, small gray eyes, and a sort of pompous manner. He kindly commented on the photo sculpt of Jerry and Tommy I brought along. Should be praiseworthy. Squandered a big chunk of bonus money on it. Figurines are perfectly lifelike and edge-lighted to make plastic all but invisible. Checked out in pressure suit today. Temperature in surface dust, minus 87 degrees Fahrenheit, and falling. Butler is laconic as hell, but very explicit when technical explanation is needed. Duties: lunar day, maintain transmitter station, housekeeping and galley chores, light, thank God. Meteoroid inspection of the rig and transmitting antenna station and emergency power and life support systems, including our tiny crawler. Lunar night, likewise, on all counts, save meteoroid inspection. Sound ambitious? First tour showed that a lone man could easily handle things. Electronics are modularized. We have spares to burn. Our only exotic gear, ultra-parametric amplifier in receiving and the rig's drive computer. Moon's goofy axial wobble makes this refinement mandatory. One other station, emergency communications, a joke. FM transmitter and vehicles in line of sight, within range, required to relay any all messages earthside. Butler says proper conditions have happened once in past 14 years during some emergency, luckily. Lunar orbital traffic is entirely below our horizon. We are as cut off from all things human as it is possible to be and still live. You must be here to appreciate this. Questioned Butler about rotating to Site 3 now and then to talk home. He smiled, explained Ozma's severe financial straits. Such cheating, invalidating contract, would mean paying own Earth passage, forfeiture of bonus and allotments, reimbursing NASA for whopping insurance premiums, etc. I'd be in hock to NASA till baby Tommy or his sons found work. Resupply crawler from Crisium each and every 6 months. Want to check and make sure we aren't loafing. We'll bring goodies and mail. I'll have beaucoup letters for Geraldine by then. Oh, hell. Over 2-1 and knew my own mind, so they say. Next resupply date? Unknown. Arrival date, a forbidden topic by mutual consent. Did I mention that Dr. Liu has medical background as well as physics? Burst appendix would be a fearsome prospect out here or otherwise. August 29th. Lone watch today. Butler seemed satisfied with my performance. We'll switch staff to 6 hours watch, 18 hours rest and recreation. Much easier on everyone. Lou gave monthly physical exam after dinner and says I'm A1. Can't help liking Lou. He's intelligent, infinitely patient, precise in movement and speech, with clear oriental skin and coal-black eyes. Our music room's a luxury, especially for me. The only compartment in the monastery hut kept at decent atmospheric pressure for acoustic purposes, since all hate wearing headphones. When asked, Lou explained faint odor in music room as a combination of soupy air plus Mr. Charoff's pipe. He smokes in defiance of rules, and Butler looks the other way. Gathered Lou not at all fond of Charoff, but does admit he's a genuine music nut. Sounds like someone worth knowing. Also logged my first station entry today, transmitting Tau Ceti on 1430 MHz band, just off natural frequency of neutral hydrogen. Star some 10 light years distant. May hear from them in 20 years, who knows? Watched assembled Platon on raster monitor. Number theory, value of pi graphics includes schematic representations of solar system and bisymmetrical human form. The rig receiving likewise. Frequency of unionized hydrogen. Letter to Geraldine, then sack time. Tired tonight. Miss Jerry, lots and lots. August 30th. Returned from watch today and heard someone singing snatches from Boris's death scene, pulls sharp after every second bar, and knocked politely to meet the singer. Gregor Charoff is straight from bad opera buffet, taller, wider than life, sporting an auburn beard nesting birds might have built, and supposed Rabelaisian gusto. He's really just a gruff kook who thinks his charisma sprouts from loud belches and a booming laugh, is easily amused, mostly by his own dialogue, and damned generous with advice on everything. Some fella. It seems Butler had mentioned my photo sculpt, and Charoff demanded to see it. He was overwhelmed. Geraldine, it developed, was the exact image of a lost love goddess whom he'd chased in Ankara 20 years ago, while Tommy was an absolute ringer for his favorite nephew back home in Vladivostok. Gregor has one standard joke in his repertoire. The lunar far side is a sort of rare garden spot compared to Vladivostok. God, he may be right. Over coffee, he discoursed on Olber's paradox, numismatics, homeopathic medicine, orchids, French opera, American baseball, about which he knows nothing, and a few topics I've forgotten. Whew. He finally did explain something concrete, who the 41ers are. It seems they're us, numb-witted jackasses who've agreed to 18 months of living burial here on the 41% of Luna's wasteland never seen by Earth, and who, conversely, never see home and hearth hanging in the sky like a blue-silver Christmas tree bauble as it does over Site 1 and the other Earthside bases. Charoff capped the evening with a yawn that exposed his entire trachea, gave me a friendly blow on the shoulder, and ambled off to his cage to hibernate. He'll take beaucoup getting used to. Watch tonight, monotonous, lonely. 6 hours seem 12 or 15. From the control room, the rig's huge dish is limned in starlight above the rolling shoulders of the Soviets, but stars never crawl to westward as they do at home. The moon's a static, sterile dust ball. Couldn't shake the idiotic notion that Earth did not exist, that this blasphemous place was all there ever was or would be. Silly. Nothing much to occupy my mind on watch. Might have spent more time listening to Jerry's misgivings about accepting this damn fool contract. Sure, a year and a half out here is better than 3 years wearing a uniform, and a conscription waiver went with the NASA contract. Hell, money's pouring in. I'll hang in there and get rich. October 11th. Skipped a couple of days since nothing new. Listened to several tapes again today. Sibelius, Offenbach, Prokofiev. Great quadraphonic tape library and excellent audio equipment. Friend Charoff, who poo-poos Sibelius as a composer of effects rather than serious music, stirred me to lively argument again. Bear's manner can get under anyone's skin. Watch it. Not a hell of a lot else to report. Charoff argued at dinner about Richard Strauss, but half-hearted, mopey. There seems to be a feud of sorts going between him and Lou, who's quiet, capable, and self-contained, while Charoff's noisy, more or less capable, and contained by nothing whatsoever, including self. Butler remains aloof, which is slightly worry-making. Dreaded going on watch. Loneliness. Read for a time, but couldn't concentrate. Here 2 months or thereabouts, and it seems 10 times that. Meals pre-packaged, deep frozen. Quite good, but something is missing. Daydreams filled with Geraldine and Tommy. Miss Jerry terribly at times. Most times. Can't shake scary feeling something dreadful has happened to her. Would never know it here. Turning in. Hope sleep comes easily tonight. November 20th. Good old 1,430,000,000 hertz for 27.321661 days this month. Listening same frequency. What else is new? Thought up harmless rebellion. Will horse around with higher frequencies for a few watches. May transmit above 8,000 megahertz when no one's looking, till Butler catches me, and listen same frequency. What fun! Boredom supreme, and that shouldn't be. Intrinsic fascination with Ozma, really. Virtual certainty that modulated RF from out there is falling on every substellar point of motion and planets. But at what frequency? That's the jackpot question. Where to tune for the program from Oz? Yesterday, Lou and Charoff got into a blistering debate over why Ozma ever set up here in backwash of universe. Charoff, wild and woolly, but with a grain of an instinct for truth, insisted that ultra-parametric receiving equipment in any airless environs would have sufficed. Lou patiently pointed out that the original intent of Site 7 was for an RF lab, that Ozma moved here with NASA's decision to fund the rig's construction. Hadn't known that, nor had Charoff, who was peaked plus. He flared at Lou unmercifully, wilder than ever. He'd had a few, of course. Butler found and dismantled his latest vacuum still, but the bear must have rigged another. His vodka tastes and smells like rancid castor oil. But high proof plus low PSIG oxyhelium in the hut turns him into a rather foul-mouthed, abominable snowman. What can the old man do? Fire him? Joke. On watch one whole cosmic year tonight. Really tough staying awake. Back in SAC, most times, equally tough getting to sleep. Miss Geraldine beyond telling. Sit for hours staring into photosculpt. Do idiotic things. Jam face up against photosculpt to null plastic and make Geraldine seem life-size. Everything about Jerry is right and perfect. She could almost step out and... January 19th, 2027. Yesterday, damned eventful. Shaken right out of the sack by a major quake. We get a steady diet of small tremors. Charoff oohed and awed and danced around like one round-eyed, scared Russian, while Butler and Lou crammed selves into our tiny crawler to survey possible damage to station equipment. Got a scare call from them in 10 minutes, suited up post-haste with extra oxy bottles and survivor kits. A large bolide had smashed into the crust less than 7 kilometers from Site 7. New crater issuing gas, and Butler agitated as an old hen. Quick marched upland beside Butler, in crawler, toward foothills. Found some skimpy shade, watched and waited. What the hell for? If old Luna had decided to gobble up Site 7, we had all bought it. A few lesser jolts later. Gaseous issue dwindled, stopped, trekked back, pooped after 15 hours in pea suits. The instant air spilled into inner lock chamber, we heard the communications howler wailing and fell all over each other, getting our fish bowls off. It was the resupply crawler from Site 3, like Christmas cubed. They had been in the quake zone and were worried as hell when they couldn't raise us on radio. All outside to greet them later. Bundles and bags of letters from Jerry. I have about 1 trillion carefully chosen words to ship home. Bedded down after celebration, Charoff uncorked some of his best. Butler smiled paternally and even had a snort himself. Much later, Charoff had to be helped to his sack after being dragged away from poor Lou. Gregor gets damned boorish on the sauce, especially to Dr. Lou. Very, repeat, very nasty to Lou. The scene embarrassed the Crawler boys. Puzzle. Lou does nothing obvious to antagonize the bear. Afterward, read Jerry's letters thrice. Little sheep, but what the hell? Says she's lonely, otherwise fine. God in heaven, if dear Geraldine knew the true meaning of loneliness. In control room on watch when the crawler left. Hardest thing yet in this life for me was to see it shrink to a glittering speck in the pass northwest of station. I will not see, hear, nor feel contact with the rest of humanity for another half year. February 22nd. Still here, Richard? Is the good old monastery hut still smelly as a locker room at the Y? A hut by any name smells just as sweat. Not bad. Pretty good poetry for a budding young scientist, huh? Still camped on Luna's backside, earning my fortune. Backside. Hell. There's a simpler word for it. Vibrating in and out on 21 centimeters, if anyone cares. Damned few do. And still pouring that goddamn Charoff into his sack and pulling him away from Dr. Lou. Someday he'll clobber Lou in one of his asinine rages. If he does, he's in for some lumps of his own, the bastard. Butler's getting more concerned. Brilliant man, but damned ineffectual. Crawler gone more than a month. Won't last my full hitch, and know it thoroughly and completely. Next resupply crawler to Site 3 will have a deadhead aboard. Richard C. Dallin. Dumb, but sane. Husband, father, and incipient pauper. I've also been having grade A nightmares. Wake dripping sweat after running for hours in pea suit, skirting craters and leaping craterlets, chasing the crawler. But the damned crawler keeps churning along just out of reach. The others much worse. Triumphant homecoming in taxi. Dash madly up the stairs, ignoring apartment house elevator, and unlock the door. There sits Geraldine, just as in photosculpt, holding baby Tommy on her lap, smiling her sunny smile. I can't get in. Chilling wall of plastic between us. Beat and push and hammer fists raw, but I can't get in. Jerry and Tommy frozen 10 paces away, not moving. Wake screaming after that one. Rugged, meaning to talk to Lou about myself again. Headaches, lapses when I do nothing but worry. Going through senseless motions here. Must get to Site 3 and home. February 28. Third of hitch gone. 2/3 to go. Aimless existence from day to day to day. If not for music room, I'd be in a real tailspin. Go there every rec period and drown in sounds. Tapes restore something precious as food, sleep, or... No, I must not even think about that. Read some Shakespeare yesterday. He put it neatly. When griping griefs the heart doth wound, and doleful dumps the mind oppress, then music with her silver sound with speedy help doth lend redress. 21 centimeters, both ways, and Charoff badgering Lou constantly. I'd like to help Lou, but how? March 3rd. Sick. God-awful headaches and drowsiness. No watches during past 2 days. Lou gave me once over. Thinks problem psychosomatic and gives therapy in form of encouragement. How he supposedly felt likewise the first few months. Gallant lie, but Lou's a great guy. Don't understand it. 4 of us, all healthy. Can't infect each other with something exotic way out here. Moon's controlled indoor environment notoriously low in bacteria count, perhaps the healthiest place of all human habitation. Crawler's been gone too long for incubation of anything infectious from crewmen. Better straighten self out. March 15. Tragedy. Gregor Charov is dead. Happened while I was in SAC. Butler on watch. Lou and Gregor obviously had violent argument, leading to blow-off in dining room. Butler came into hut for coffee, found Charov with carving knife, wound in abdomen. Still breathing, but blood everywhere. Lou unconscious on floor. Overturned table, chairs, room wrecked. Weakened by Butler immediately. The old man's beside himself. Lou still unconscious. We were afraid to move him. Charov's breathing stopped at 1950 hours GMT. Had disinfected wound, controlled bleeding, and administered plasma from Lou's infirmary. All we could do, I suppose, but not enough. Butler fed emergency distress tape to FM link, but chance of spacecraft in line of sight, within range, vanishingly small. I don't like Lou's look. Comatose, breathing shallow, pulse weak and irregular. Lack of knowledge how to help is killing him. Butler believes basal skull fracture from below, possibly fall. Clot, also possible. What to do? March 17. I am alone. Lose pulse, respiration faltered, 0415. Tried external heart massage and resuscitation, no response. Butler left for automated Earthside radio relay station in the Sea of Smith at 1500 hours after we placed bodies in service shed and evacuated air. Horrible thought. Small crawler will need lots of luck to make it. Butler's been over Lunarscape to Site 3 dozens of times, but never to Sea of Smith. He should cover 1,800 kilometers in 10 days or so, the absolute range limit of our little crawler. If he makes it there, it'll be a ballistic shuttle from Site 1 on the ground here within hours. If he doesn't... Undated entry. Nightmares. Afraid to sleep. Wandered around, looked behind all doors. No one else is here. Butler gone long time. Cried. Haven't cried since childhood. Couldn't stop. Charov and poor Lou in service shed. Cold, shrunken mummies. All Charov's fault because... Where the Ides of March, Charov? All of them gone and I'm alone. Undated entry. God help me. Woke trembling from nightmare and found it real. Filthy, unshaven for days, weeks. Trouble remembering things and scared. Also, hallucinations or cruelest imaginable joke. Cleaned self up and inspected station by way of applying nature's therapy. Thoughts that Butler had maybe gotten through were reviving and refreshing, tremendously stimulated by hopes of rescue. Checked tapes in receiving and heart damned near quit. The rig has been reading a modulated signal for some time. Don't trust my own judgment anymore. Double-checked all, then checked again. The rig has been receiving discrete source approximate line gamma SETI on 8200 megahertz. Checked, verified tapes, line feed, 16452 installed. Don't recall putting it on. Last entry in station log. Butler, March 15th. Cites our old standby, 11-211 installed. Cannot explain any of it. Put tape on scope and horsed around with it until heart damn near exploded. Platon, when assembled, reads as follows. Clear English. Stop RF noise interfering vital experiment have monitored you long and promise, contact, future, if, stop, or penalty, most severe, out. All the goddamn nerve. Went through log for transmissions that frequency. Didn't think there would be any, but sure enough, 8,200 megahertz for a few watches when Butler's back turned. If there's a research vessel out there, it's way to hell and beyond anything I've heard about. But any hope's better than none. They'll tune my distress call, crank their high-gain array around and relay Earthside. Discarded binary input to transmitter, voice-coded Mayday tape, and I'm on the air. Hope, again, wonderful. Undated entry. Weeks have passed. Modulated signal gone. Abandoned me like all others. Mind's gone soft. Forgot they're way out in deep space. Headaches, lapses when I'm... Need help desperately. Now. Sending on FM link and 8,200 megahertz. SOS. Little hope. Undated entry. Saw self in mirror just now and bawled. I'm a mess. How long since strange contact? A dream? Didn't think to log it date-wise. Barely remember, and uncertainty damning. Not certain of anything. Have lapses into... Not sure what to call it, but I'm afraid. Undated entry. Sunset outside. Jerry and Tommy boy like the view. Hold them up to glare-proof in control room, and they love it. Take them wherever I go now, except for service shed. Must not go into service shed. Taboo. If only I could be with Jerry and Tommy, I'd be so happy. Undated entry. Heartless bastards are complaining again about my call for help. I need help. If I irritate them enough, maybe they'll come help me. Jerry thinks so. Tommy's too young to understand. Playing music for them now. Lots of Sibelius and Stravinsky. Rite of Spring can be damned irritating. May jibe them enough to make them come help me. If not, maybe they'll like the music and come anyhow. They seem closer somehow. Sorry Tommy boy doesn't like Sibelius. Jerry does. So do I. Undated entry. Khachaturian, Borodin, Rimsky-Korsakov, today, Russian kick honoring that bastard Charov. Glier, Mussorgsky to round it out. Playing Sibelius's fine Fifth Symphony for them again, too. It's so appropriate, so filled with light and that exhilarating sense of freedom. Life. Undated entry. Copland, Vivaldi, Beethoven, and Gluck today. A mixed bag. Gilbert and Sullivan for seasoning. Jerry loves the Patter songs. They should appreciate Gilbert and Sullivan, too. Their English is flawless. Final undated entry. Trimmed beard, groomed self. Must be presentable. Look my best. My very best. Jerry, Tommy, and I are ready. Airlock, cycling. Judge Darananga threw open the door to find the newsman standing at the window, soberly contemplating the flow of water traffic far below in the East River. "I have only a minute," said the judge. "The jury is balloting now. Tell me truthfully, were you impressed?" "Beyond words." The newsman's eyes were hollow. "There are several matters. I remember reading that Dr. Butler's body was later recovered." The judge leaned on the back of a chair, rocking gently. "Heavy-handed irony," he said. "Dr. Butler's tiny crawler almost made it. It had tumbled down a talus slope bordering the Sea of Smith, just 85 kilometers from his objective. It was discovered by a returning selenographical team he had passed, well within radio range when outbound. Dr. Butler rests near the lonely outpost that had been his charge for so many, many years. The reporter's nod was somber. And Richard Dallin? What happened to him? Darananga smiled thinly. How casually you ask the question of questions, Barry. The facts are these. Every automatic service device in the monastery hut was operating as usual when the resupply crawler from Site 3 made its routine call, though none of quadraphonic audio tapes normally stored in the music room, nor the radio telescope's monitoring tapes could be found. Nothing else seemed disturbed. Every pressure suit was accounted for by serial number, while the pocked, eternally silent wilderness around and about the station has been scoured and searched time and time again. The newsman grunted. He said nothing. Which leaves us to dwell upon the true enigma, the photosculpt, pursued Darananga. The diary itself, plus sworn testimony furnished by Geraldine Dallin and by the California company Barron and Sons, photo sculptors, establish beyond reasonable doubt that only Mrs. Dallin and her infant son posed for the photosculpt on the day in question. The newsman nodded. If so, said Darananga in a solemn tone, we are confronted with paradox. You have seen the photosculpt. Imprisoned in seamless, rock-hard acrylic resin, the 6-inch figurine of Geraldine Dallin is seated in a cane-backed chair, smiling pleasantly, holding baby Tommy on her lap. Scowling, Darananga folded his arms across his deep chest. And hunched behind them, he said, one casual arm resting on his wife's shoulder, crouches the emaciated, soul-wrenching figurine of Richard Charles Dallin. I've seen, said the newsman. But more concretely, said the judge relentlessly, microscopic examination shows that individual skin pores, retinal eye patterns, each single strand of the subject's hair and beard are exquisitely detailed in a manner totally beyond present-day photosculpture techniques. Penalty most severe, said the newsman hoarsely. Darananga became intent. Was that really the case? Don't leap to conclusions, Barry. Was indeed the penalty most severe, or does compassion take forms as yet undiscovered? Either way, Richard Dallin is, in a sense, where he longed so desperately to be. A light tap on the door caused the judge to lift his eyes expectantly. Come in. A bailiff poked his head in long enough to say, Jury's back in the courtroom, Your Honor. The foreman says they've reached a verdict. Thank you, Carl. Darananga donned his robes, his manner preoccupied. He spent a moment or two adjusting the parliamentary wig, then asked, Did you hear him? The jury's reached a verdict, he said. I wish to God it were that simple. Amen, the newsman said. Darananga sighed. I think Richard Dallin's jury will be out for some time, quite some time. He made ready to leave, turning at the door with a curious light in his eyes. Perhaps until the music from those missing tapes comes back to us from the stars. You've been listening to pre-1990s speculative fiction readings with a highlight on science fiction by Darrell T. Smith II. Please consider clicking the donation link in the description box. Thank you so much for your time and your imagination.